Okay, I want you to forget everything you think you know about leaves, because they're not just, a part of a plant. They are literally the most advanced solar-powered factories on the entire planet. So today, we're going to go on a tour of this microscopic marvel of engineering, photosynthesis, the process that turns pure sunlight into life itself.
So this right here, this is the core idea for our entire tour. I want you to think of this leaf not as a piece of biology, but as an incredible piece of engineering. It's a high-tech solar factory, complete with power plants and assembly lines, and it's manufacturing the single most important product on Earth, the energy that fuels pretty much all life.
So that really is the big question, isn't it? How does this factory, operating silently all around us every single day, actually pull this off? Well, you might want to put on your hard hats, because we're about to take a tour inside.
All right, our first stop on the tour takes us right into the heart of the operation, the factory floor itself. We're going inside the chloroplast.
Now, this factory isn't just located anywhere in the plant. No, it's strategically placed inside these specialized mesophyll cells. And get this, what's really clever is how these chloroplasts actually line themselves up along the cell walls. They're actively moving to get the absolute maximum sun exposure, kind of like tiny, super smart solar panels.
And here we are, right inside the factory, the chloroplast. You see those stacks of green discs? Those are the grana, and you can think of them as the solar power plant. This is where all the light energy gets captured. And the fluid-filled space all around them, that's the stroma. That's our assembly floor, where the final product is going to get built.
The whole operation here, it's basically a two-act play. Act 1, the light reaction. It all goes down in our power plant, the grana. Its job is to use light and water to generate energy. Then you have Act 2, the so-called dark reaction, which happens out on the assembly line, the stroma. It takes all that energy and uses it to build sugar from carbon dioxide.
Okay, so let's actually head into that power plant. It's time to see exactly how this factory generates all its fuel from nothing but pure sunlight. You know the core machinery in here? It's absolutely fascinating. These are called photosystems. They're these huge complexes of proteins that are total experts at harvesting light. And here's a little fun fact for you. Photosystem 2 actually comes before Photosystem 1 in the whole process. Yeah, they were just named in the order they were discovered, not the order they work.
So think about this. When a photon of light zaps photosystem 2, it gets an electron all excited, and that electron literally jumps out. But this creates a huge problem, right? It's a fundamental rule of engineering. You can't just have a missing part. So what on earth happens to the empty hole that electron leaves behind?
Well, nature's solution to this is nothing short of genius. The factory just takes a water molecule and rips it apart. This process is called photolysis, and it does a few things. It releases an electron to perfectly fill that hole. It releases protons to help build a power gradient. And, oh yeah, as a very convenient byproduct, it releases the oxygen that you and I are breathing right now. Incredible.
Okay, this diagram right here, this is the master plan. It's called the Z-scheme, and it maps out the electron's entire wild journey. You can see it starts out at a low energy level, then gets a huge boost from light at photosystem 2. From there, it travels down this electron transport chain, creating some energy, some ATP along the way. Then it gets a second energy boost at photosystem 1, before it finally stores all that power in a high-energy molecule.
So after all that, what do we actually get from our power plant? Well, we get three absolutely crucial products. We get ATP, which is the cell's universal energy currency. We get NADPH, which is kind of like a rechargeable battery packed with high-energy electrons. And of course, we get all that oxygen that's released out into the atmosphere.
All right, the power is officially on. So now let's move out to the assembly floor, the stroma, and see how all this raw energy is used to manufacture the factory's final product, sugar.
Now, you'll often hear this part of the process called the dark reaction, but honestly, that's a really bad name for it. It's pretty misleading. It doesn't mean it happens in the dark. It just means it's powered by the products of the light reactions, that ATP and NDPH we just made, not by sunlight itself. So no power from the power plant, no assembly line. Simple as that. So the assembly line here runs in three main stages. First up is carboxylation. This is where the factory literally grabs its main raw material, CO2, right out of the thin air. Second is reduction, where it injects all that energy from the ATP and NADPH. And third is regeneration, where it resets all the machinery so the whole cycle can start right over again. And the specific machine that does that first big step, grabbing the CO2, is an enzyme called Rubisco. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about here, This single molecule is the most abundant enzyme on the entire planet. That's just how fundamental this one process is to everything.
So what's the final cost? What's the bill for all this manufacturing? Well, to make just one single molecule of glucose, the assembly line has to spin 6 times. It chews through 6 molecules of CO2, a whopping 18 ATP, and 12 NADPH. Yeah, it's a super energy-intensive process, but the payoff is, the fuel for almost all life on Earth.
Any good factory success is all about efficiency, right? So for our next stop, we're heading up to the control room to see what kinds of dials and levers actually govern this factory's performance.
Before we look at the plant, let's get a really simple concept down with this pen factory idea. Imagine you have 100 pen refills, but you only have 30 caps. How many pens can you make? Only 30, right? The caps are your limiting factor. Your production is always limited by the resource you have the least of. Well, photosynthesis works the exact same way. So what are the limiting factors for our little plant factory? Well, there are 3 main environmental dials. First is light intensity. Too little and there's no power, but you can also have too much and it'll just tap out. Then there's temperature, which has to be in this perfect Goldilocks zone for the enzymes to work properly. And finally, CO2 concentration, the raw material itself.
And this is exactly how we apply that knowledge in the real world. Modern agriculture uses this science to create these perfectly engineered environments. We can actually crank up the CO2, we can dial in the perfect temperature, and provide the optimal amount of light. We're essentially hacking photosynthesis to get the maximum possible yield.
Okay, for our final stop, I want us to zoom way out from this tiny factory and just appreciate its absolutely massive, staggering impact on a global scale.
So let's just quickly recap the core lessons from our factory tour. First, performance is always going to be governed by bottlenecks, by that one limiting factor. Second, on a global scale, CO2 is the planet's primary limiting factor. Third, different plants are like different kinds of engines, each tuned for very specific conditions. And finally, real optimization is always a delicate balancing act.
So in the end, we're left with this one incredible thought. Every single bite of food you eat, every breath of air you take, it all traces back to this silent, elegant, ancient process running inside every green leaf. It really is the engine that builds the very matter that sustains all life. And it kind of makes you wonder, if we can learn this much from a single leaf, what other secrets to our own survival are just waiting for us, hidden in nature's designs?